Hello everybody, my name is Dragon. Welcome back my channel Health Fitness 1047. Here is the episode new. Follow me.
Okay, let's unpack this AP article. It covers this really striking coincidence.
Yeah, almost strangely symmetrical, right?
Exactly. The passing of two, well, absolute musical giants, Sly Stone and Brian Wilson.
Both at 82, nearly at the same time. It's one of those things that really makes you stop and think.
Totally. Two profoundly influential figures, real revolutionaries, leaving life's stage, as the article puts it, right alongside each other. And this deep dive, it's really all about exploring those strange symmetries the article points out in their lives. You know, their parallel paths.
Right, looking at their creative fires, the huge walls they both seem to hit.
And the legacies they leave behind, which are just immense.
So our mission here is really to pull out the key insights from this piece for you, to understand what it reveals about, their shared experiences. Genius, struggle.
And that lasting impact.
Yeah, exactly.
So the article jumps right in with this central theme. Sly Stone, Brian Wilson, okay, stylistically very different artists.
Very different, yeah.
But both undeniable musical geniuses. And the article argues there's this crucial shared thread. They both paid a high price for their gifts.
That's really the core parallel the piece highlights. They both burn bright, creatively, hit these extraordinary peaks.
And the art they made back then, the article notes, it just seems to get more moving and meaningful with time. It really holds up.
It absolutely does. But then there's that darker symmetry.
Yeah.
The article points out that despite all that brilliance, their creative lights were, for different reasons, extinguished suddenly through mental health and addiction issues.
It's stark when you put it like that.
Anthony DeCurtis is quoted in the piece, and he calls it an unsettling coincidence.
Right.
With these, very different and massively influential figures, he observes they each kind of ran into a wall of their own problems in many ways.
Which naturally leads you to wonder, as the article asks, could they have done more? It's a tough question.
A very tough question.
Okay, so let's start by unpacking Brian Wilson first. The article really focuses on him initially. He's presented as the architect of the California Sing.
Or the Beach Boys, yeah. The band he co-founded with his late brothers, Carl and Dennis.
And you instantly think, surfing, sun, beaches, girls, fun.
That's the surface layer, exactly. The fun world the article mentions. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The piece really pushes back on the idea that this was just like disposable music for teenagers.
Right. It says there was something much deeper and darker going on in his composing.
Absolutely. His genius, the way the article describes it, an unparalleled melodic sense. He was literally hearing sounds others couldn't conceive of.
And that ability he had to kind of worm his way into your head and then break your heart with a melody.
Yeah.
It's uncanny.
Yeah, almost at the same time, the article gives some great examples to show that emotional range.
Like In My Room.
Right.
And God Only Knows.
Yeah.
Those are cited as just heartbreakingly vulnerable.
Deeply vulnerable, yeah. And then, of course, the big one, Good Vibrations.
Good Vibrations. The piece calls it a tour de force, a symphony both complex and easily accessible.
Which is an amazing feat in itself.
And you have to mention the theremin, right? That famous, almost spooky sound. The unearthly wail, the article calls it.
It's so distinctive. Nothing else sounds like it.
And his 1966 album Pet Sounds is definitely highlighted as a peak moment, a creative explosion.
But the article also digs into the pressures he was under them. Huge pressures.
Like what?
Well, that keen sense of competition with the Beatles, for one. And remember, the Beatles had like 3 main songwriters.
Whereas Wilson was largely alone,
Yeah.
The main creative engine.
Exactly. Plus, he apparently felt impatience and doubt from other Beach Boys, the very guys whose music he was providing.
Wow. Imagine that dynamic, being the genius behind it all, but feeling doubted by your bandmates.
It must have been intense. And the article explains how this directly impacted his next big project, the follow-up to Pet Sounds.
Which became Smile.
Or the attempt at Smile, yeah. Famously called music's most famous unfinished album. It just kind of collapsed under all that weight.
Just couldn't sustain it.
Seems like it. And the piece traces his decline from there, notes he never reached the heights again, creatively.
And descended into a well-chronicled period of darkness. It also mentions earlier trauma too, right?
Yeah, it connects it back, describing him as a damaged soul to begin with because of an abusive father.
Man, that's heavy stuff. So much darkness behind that, sunny California image.
It really is. But the music, it endures. Like that quote from Sean Ono Lennon the article includes,
Right.
calling him our American Mozart.
Wow. That really puts the scale of his unique genius into perspective, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Okay, so shifting gears now. The article then turns its focus over to Sly Stone.
Right. And his genius, different from Wilson's,
Yeah.
but just as revolutionary in its own way.
Totally. The piece describes his skill as creating a musical world that others only dreamed of at the time.
And what a world. Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, the article highlights this. They weren't just a band.
No, they were an integrated world, right? Black and white, men and women, all on stage together.
Making this incredibly potent music. That lineup itself is just groundbreaking back then.
Hugely groundbreaking. And their sound, it matched that vision. The article calls it a potent mixture of rock, soul, and funk.
And it had that amazing dual power the article talks about. It made you move. It made you think.
You couldn't ignore it. It was visceral and intellectual.
The list of hits the article mentions,
Yeah.
it's just staggering. Truly inescapable, like it says, from 67 to 73.
Yeah, run through them again.
Okay. You've got Dance to the Music, Everybody is a Star, Higher, Hot Fun in the Summertime, Sing a Simple Song, Family Affair, Thank You.
Ballad to Me, Be Myself Again.
Right. Just hit after hit. Defined an era.
And their Woodstock performance, the article rightly calls that out as a milestone, just iconic.
Mm-hmm. And there's this really insightful perspective in the piece from Questlove, talking about Stone's work.
Oh, yeah. What does he say?
He says the songs weren't just about, fighting injustice. They were about transforming the self to transform the world.
Wow. That's a really profound way to look at Sly's message. It wasn't just external, it was internal, too.
Exactly. Questlove also talks about Stone's unique musical language. He says he dared to be simple in the most complex ways,
How so?
using things like childlike joy, wordless cries, and nursery rhyme cadences to express adult truths. Think about that.
That's fascinating, using simplicity to convey complexity.
Yeah. And Questlove argues his work looked straight at the brightest and darkest parts of life and demanded we do the same. No flinching.
Powerful. But the article doesn't shy away from his decline either, does it?
No, not at all. It states pretty bluntly that the fall was hard and largely attributes it to years of drug abuse,
Right, and it mentions those periodic comeback attempts over the years.
which sadly the article notes often just deepened a sense of bewilderment and pity among people who remembered his peak.
Yeah, a tough trajectory.
Now, here's a really interesting contrast the article brings up when you put their stories next to so many other music legends.
What's that?
Well, music history is just, as the article says, littered with stories of sudden, untimely, and early deaths. The 27 Club, all that.
Mm-hmm. Tragically common.
But both Stone and Wilson, the piece points out, they lived on. They somewhat improbably passed average life expectancies.
Huh. That's actually another unexpected symmetry between them, isn't it? Endurance.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at their later lives, the article paints, well, different pictures. For Brian Wilson, it sounds like he achieved some level of peace.
Yeah, it mentions a happy marriage, seeing his music really revered and appreciated.
And he spent years performing again, right?
Hmm.
With that younger band, the Peace Notes clearly worshipped him. Must have been validating.
Sounds like it. There's a quote from journalist Jason Fine who made a documentary about him.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about Wilson's message in his later life, wanting to give people a sense of warmth, a sense that it's going to be okay.
No, that's nice.
Yeah, reflecting how music lifted him out of darkness, and apparently he found great comfort knowing he could do the same for others.
That's a really positive outcome considering everything. Now, for Sly Stone, the picture the article presents seems different.
Bit more ambiguous, maybe.
Yeah. He did emerge to write an autobiography in 2023, which the article mentioned.
Right, I remember that coming out.
But it also states that less is known about his later years. It kind of leaves open the question, did he find peace? Did he die knowing how much his music meant?
We don't really know for sure. Questlove touches on this again, too.
What's his take?
He acknowledges the struggles. Yes, Sly battled addiction. Yes, he disappeared from the spotlight. But
Right.
he emphasizes that Stone lived long enough to feel the ripples of his genius return. You know, through hip-hop samples, documentaries, his memoir.
So he got some recognition back, some sense of his impact maybe.
Perhaps, though Questlove adds a crucial point. Still, none of that replaces the raw beauty of his original work.
No, you can't replace that initial explosion of creativity. So the article kind of circles back to this core question about both of them. Were their lives ultimately tragedies or triumphs?
And the answer it gives is, it's complicated. It says it's hard to say now.
But it does suggest that maybe that answer gets easier with the passage of time when only the work remains.
Right. Because the work itself, the music, sometimes brings clarity when the complexities of the life fade a bit.
And ultimately, the article really hammers home their impact with that final quote from Anthony de Curtis.
The one about transformation.
Yeah. Millions of people had their lives changed by their music. Not just enjoyed it, but had their lives transformed. That's quite an accomplishment.
It really is a profound reminder of the power of art, isn't it? Even beyond the artist's own struggles.
Definitely. So we've really dug into these striking parallels. This article explores, the incredible talent side by side with intense personal struggles.
And the enduring power of the music itself, even as their later lives went down such different, complex roads.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About genius and the human cost that sometimes seems to come with it.
For sure. That intersection is fascinating and often quite painful.
Exactly. So, thinking about everything this article lays out, the complexities of their lives, how do you think history will ultimately weigh the genius against the pain they went through?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. And what does it really mean for the art, for the music, to live on so powerfully, to keep transforming lives, even when the artists themselves had such difficult later years or, withdrew from the world?
It's definitely something to keep mulling over. The art versus the artist, the legacy versus the life.
Absolutely. Lots to think about.
Yeah.